What do Sam Altman and the Pope have in common? They're both on Newcomer's list of the top quotes from 2025. We've got 18 quotations from business leaders, tech titans, politicians, and industry insiders. Everything from Jensen Huang talking about America winning the AI race to Elon Musk signaling the demise of his relationship with Donald Trump, and even Sam Altman talking about his GPT parenting skills with Jimmy Fallon. Senators, the vice president, and even the Pope will all make an appearance on our list of the most important and impactful quotes of 2025. This is the Newcomer Podcast. Welcome to the Newcomer Podcast. One of our favorite things here is to look back at the year through quotes. Some spicy, some profound, some inane, some we think are embarrassing. We're looking for a mix of quotes from high-profile speakers. We've got, everybody from Sam Altman to the Pope in this list. Madeline Renbarger, yours truly on the podcast, is the main compiler here. So she'll help explain which ones we picked.
I'll have to defend myself on the pod for why I think this is the most important quote of the year.
Exactly. And we weighed in, and you'll have Tom Dotan's melodious voice reading the quotes to you. I like to give Tom all the reading assignments. He's our audiobook kind of
guy. Yeah, popcorn Tom.
In a different life, I think you could have been an audiobook reader. So yeah, we'll get into it. We have 18 quotes here. I think you're going to get a great snapshot of the wild 2025, and maybe that'll give us a little bit of a lens into what to look for this year. It will be no surprise that artificial intelligence looms large. This podcast, obviously, we talk about AI a lot, so not surprising we'd be interested in those quotes. But I think, we're quoting the Pope here. We're quoting, the vice president. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the 18 quotes that defined 2025 from CEOs, VCs, political leaders, and everybody else.
I'll do my best to read these in character too. Okay.
That wasn't even the mandate.
Well, we'll see if that works even anyway. Okay. We stand now at the frontier of an AI industry that is hungry for reliable power and high quality semiconductors. Yet too many of our friends are deindustrializing on the one hand and chasing reliable power out of their nations and off their grids with the other. The AI future is not going to be won by hand-wringing about safety. It will be won by building, from reliable power plants to the manufacturing facilities that can produce the chips of the future.
That is JD Vance on the need for less AI regulation at the Paris AI Action Summit, February 11th, 2025. Madeline, why did this stand out to you?
Well, this quote I felt like was really kicking off the year with the US on the global stage, and JD Vance, of all people, telling Europe that they need to lax their AI regulations and get out of the way for American innovation. And I felt like both politically on lots of fronts, but the tech industry at large in our era of effective accelerationism, you had, the commander-in-chief's, second in command there basically saying, yeah, let's go. It's time to build. Marc Andreessen, in front of everyone.
No safety net.
No safety. And the safety regulations are only hindering, our future. And in many ways, also, it was not a very global friendly speech. Other parts of the speech, kind of shit on,
Right. Kicking off American antagonism towards Europe.
They basically were like, yeah, well, we're going to do this and you better get out of the way. It was very, isolationist as well.
I mean, to me, this is just JD Vance and the administration doing full business capture of the tech industry. This is what they paid for. This is why they wanted him in office. They wanted no regulation. They wanted tech to be in control of all policy writing. They have the quasi VC as vice president going up there and telling Europeans that they should not regulate any of our great American companies. He's not going out there talking about Mistral. He's not telling these people, don't be regulating Mistral and FluidStack, and Lovable. They want to make sure that OpenAI, which is, Sam lobbied very hard to get, positioning in the administration to leave us alone. So hand-wringing about safety, ew, gross. We don't want that.
This is in February. A couple things happened. We got the AI executive order trying to ban states from regulating AI. Who knows how effective that will be? So it's not just trying to block Europe. It's trying to tell states no regulation. There was an interesting piece, I believe it was in Politico, about how some of the tech lobbyists are worried that David Sachs and crew are overplaying their hand on AI friendliness. That basically by saying no regulation, there's going to be such a huge backlash that this strategy of saying no regulation for AI is only going to create more enemies. And I think that'll emerge as we keep going through these quotes.
I mean, Tom, you had a good story earlier this year about the AI industry being really upset about Texas's law about energy getting cut off to AI data centers first in the state. So it's not a given that the steamroll, no regulation AI policy will even fly with Republican senators too.
Yeah, and it's notable that this quote is from February. I think a lot has changed in the way people view AI, specifically its political valence. And at the end of the year, we had people like, I think, Marco Rubio and probably Josh Hawley talking about concerns over AI and the effect it was going to have on jobs and power and, like inflation becoming a major issue and whether or not it's related to like the cost of power and whether AI is driving that up became really problematic. So it would be interesting. Obviously, low regulation, that's probably going to remain consistent. But the idea that like AI and, is aligned with the Republican Party is not really the case.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our second quote of 2025. Tom?
All right. For some of these companies, for a lot of our customers, it will be existential kind of life and death decisions. And that is Ryan Peterson, a podcast guest at one point, right, Eric?
Yep. Flexport's CEO, he's talking about how President Trump's tariffs will impact large retailers that rely on his logistics software at Strictly VC in San Francisco on April 7th. Ryan Peterson is like Silicon Valley's tariff and trade guru, running one of the most real world startups in Silicon Valley.
I was going to say, I picked this one in part because he's, the logistics infrastructure guy in Silicon Valley. He's been incredibly successful with growing Flexport, and it's a startup that is really dependent on government trade policy. It's a logistics software company, handles these big deals. So he became, Silicon Valley's point person, like you said, Eric, during the tariff fiasco. Like, how does this affect us? How does this affect us? He went on, lots of shows explaining, and live tweeting as the policies rolled out. And what's interesting is that was tariff moment number one. The tariffs have changed quite a bit throughout the year too.
That was a few days after Liberation Day, right?
Yes. Fresh after Liberation Day. We were liberated then.
I will say, right now, the news of today, at least, is GDP is doing well. I think the New York Times headline was GDP is doing well despite tariffs. And I don't know, it was Sachs or one of the Trump-aligned people was sort of snarking the New York Times for putting tariffs still in the headline when it's like, okay, GDP seems to be okay. So I don't know, has the existential crisis manifested?
Well, this sort of is getting away from AI and tech specifically, but I think there's an incredibly pervasive mood among the American public that the economy isn't doing well right now. And whether that's psychological or real is sort of unclear. And I don't want to get in the Will Stancil fight of people don't really know what it means for prices to go up. But Trump has bad approval ratings right now. One of his lowest, God, I feel like Jason Calacanis, one of his lowest ranking categories within this is the economy. People are not happy about basically rising prices. And one of the things that they point to were the tariffs. And so was it existential for some of these companies? I don't know. You've seen retailers raising prices, blaming the tariffs for their reasons for it. So I think it's contributed, sure, life and death. Yeah, if they continued at the insane Liberation Day levels, it probably would have been incredibly difficult for retailers to make things work.
Right. There have been several backroom deals that have lowered them on specific countries and concessions that other countries have made to where it's not kind of as blanket as it was on Liberation Day for a lot of the US's biggest trading partners. Right. So maybe we feel it less. But you're totally right that consumer sentiment is down on the economy. Even if people are still spending, they're very unhappy about what the prices they're paying.
2025 was a year living under the cloud of tariffs, which I don't think any serious person helped us. And the president should thank God that all this AI infrastructure spending has just been a gift to the economy, just like build for a still somewhat uncertain technology. And yeah, the Trump administration got lucky on that one as they were creating their own self-inflicted wound with tariffs. Let's go to number 3.
All right. Today, the church offers its trove of social teaching to respond to another industrial revolution and to innovations in the field of artificial intelligence that pose challenges to human dignity, justice, and labor. That's Pope Leo, the woke pope, in a speech to cardinals 2 days after being sworn in.
Yeah, I picked this one because, well, one thing I found interesting about the woke pope is that he picked the name Leo, and he said this in relation to the first Pope Leo came about in early, hundreds AD, about technological upheaval. And he's really focused on artificial intelligence as an issue that will have profound social and religious impact on the world. And he's paying very close attention to it. And it doesn't surprise me, frankly, that the first American Pope ever is, tuned into American innovation and what's going on in our business sphere over here. But I picked it because he's expressing that he's going to be focused on this throughout his papacy as a very big issue.
And then, of course,
what's the other? Do we consider the other quote? Wasn't there was a Pope quote later in the year? I mean, this is a good one where the Pope said something equally benign about AI, and like Marc Andreessen shit on it, and then Marc Andreessen
had a Twitter beef fight with the Pope.
Right.
Because
I think we should put that one in this one. I sort of forgot about that one. Can you pull that one up too?
Yeah, I can pull that one up. I picked this one because this was his first speech to bishops.
Yeah.
So this was like coming out the gate. We're talking about AI in my papacy. Yeah. But
this Pope has said relatively mild things about, being thoughtful about AI. He picked his name after somebody who navigated, not resisted necessarily, another technological revolution. And some of the tech community can't even seem to stomach like, hey, we should be moral about this thing, which seems like the Pope's job to remind us.
I always have mixed feelings about conflating morality with the technology, because with AI, it makes me worry that like people are talking about the morality of the AI itself, like it is imbued with some sort of intelligence and emotional capabilities, when really it's just the humans that are in control of it. And, how readily you want to implement this technology basically to displace people. And which is why labor is an important thing for him to bring up. I don't want to like take Marc Andreessen's side. It was such an obnoxious tweet from him.
Well, the tweet wasn't. I finally did pull up the tweet. We can't even quote it because it was a GIF reaction. But it was.
It was that woman who was
the interviewer from the Sydney Sweeney interview about her great genes when she asked her about the American Eagle Act. So it's like reference. The Pope is tweeting about AI. Marc Andreessen replies with a reaction image from the Sydney Sweeney interview controversy. It was like, come on.
Yeah, it all sort of sucked. And I know we'll get, as this progresses, like more and more into like the tech MAGA right and how they fared throughout the course of the year. So I don't want to blow it all here, but good on the Pope for talking about labor, because that really is eventually going to be one of the central animating forces of what AI means for the economy. And to put that front and center and say we need to talk about that as much as possible seems like a good idea.
It's important. My issue on labor is always, is it taking the benefits of AI and restructuring our safety net and figuring out new jobs? Or whenever you hear labor and AI, you think like, well, Hochul in New York just vetoed this legislation that was meant to require 2 MTA workers instead of just 1, right? Like, I don't think the answer should be creating make work jobs or handicapping AI so that people can,
and I think
their jobs.
Sam has talked about that too.
Altman?
Yeah, saying like, some of these jobs that are going to be replaced by AIs weren't even really jobs in the first place, and we should kind of question their validity. And he got a lot of shit for that. I actually think that's true to an extent. I think there are a lot of like, make work is okay, sure, we can call them make work jobs, but it's like basically things that were created to give people that is make work, like email jobs, basically
bullshit jobs. I think there's a whole book about it. Number 4, our 4th quote of 2025.
I think it didn't exist. I think it was a fiction to some extent. That was Jackie Reeses at the Breaking the Bank Summit hosted by Newcomer. And this was on the narrative that the Biden administration was debanking institutions affiliated with cryptocurrencies. And that was from May.
Yeah. So Jackie Reese, CEO of Lead Bank, she was basically refuting kind of a narrative that had come up in this sort of crypto wave of the election, that the Biden administration had been actively, shutting down these companies that wanted to do crypto, and this narrative that like, oh, we really wanted to do this, but the regulators were way too strict. And I do think there was some credence to that. The Biden administration was pretty harsh on crypto companies. But, 5 months after Trump is sworn in, you have, the leader of this financial institution who's very involved with these companies basically saying, yeah, that didn't really happen. That wasn't true.
I don't know if I believe her. And obviously I am politically inclined to believe her and say, oh, the Democrats' problems were overstated. But I don't know. I think the Biden administration was clearly pretty hostile to cryptocurrencies, and some of these companies had trouble connecting with the financial system, partially because they were probably doing things that might not have been legal. But I think the Biden administration would have been much better served to say more stuff was bad and illegal than to let them operate in this terrifying gray area, which created all sorts of problems. So I don't know. Subjective call.
This is why I picked this quote, though, because I not everyone will agree with her statement.
Exactly.
Eric has a dissenting take.
All right. Number 5, quote of the year.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decreases it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. That's Elon on the Republican, the big, beautiful bill, which kind of sets up the big breakup between him and Trump, and that's in May.
That was the line that set off the fight. And it's hard to quote massive Twitter and Truth Social subtweeting back and forth in a newsletter in the same way. So I figured this could be a good signpost for the moment. But I would say as a moment in tech, obviously, without a doubt, one of the biggest stories of the year and most significant things happening was the Trump-Elon Doge fallout, and RIP Doge.
And now the consensus is basically Doge did nothing of value. Certainly didn't bring down
they
the
barely
deficit.
cut the deficit at all. They really didn't even. It was minuscule compared to how much the federal government spends. Obviously, this bill is part of that because it increased spending. But I think it's not controversial at all to say Doge was a failure.
I want to take a little bit of credit on this show. This tweet from Elon comes in late May. And I know on this show, this was in the wake of the Wisconsin election that Elon had spent millions of dollars on that blew up in the Republicans' faces. And I think I said on this show, I think this is the beginning of the end of Elon's political influence. And really, I think that, the table's turning against Trump and like the honeymoon period at the beginning of administration falling. And that has absolutely turned out to be the case. Within a couple of weeks or days of the Wisconsin election, you have the Doge fallout. You have the entire rupture between the Doge starting to collapse, the rupture between Elon and Trump. Trump's approval ratings start to fall, and you really start seeing that tech's whole bet on the Trump administration has looked, in some respects, really, just not panning out for any length of time. And so we're going to talk more about this with the other quotes, but this is another one. Didn't work out.
And Elon eventually tweets Trump's in the Epstein files, which obviously very true. And we're all sort of consuming today. We're sort of swinging back around where Elon is preparing to fund the Republicans in the midterms. It seems like Trump and Elon are, healing some of their disagreements. And so, in a fairly short amount of time, we saw Elon being sort of, what the favorite son sort of on Trump's arm at every opportunity, doing Doge, access to sort of every file, then falling out, saying Trump was in the Epstein files. And now somehow they've already repaired the relationship, crazy arc in 2025. Quote number 6.
We've never seen anything like the user growth of ChatGPT, particularly outside the US, and it shows how the global dynamics of tech and distribution have changed. That's Mary Meeker from her, I'm assuming, annual trend report, and that is that's in May.
Yeah. So this was picked. Mary Meeker, Bond Capital, writes the tech trend report that sort of sets the tone of every year of what are the main changes in tech innovation or trends people should be following. And this was the first year she actually made the tech trend report the AI trend report. Like, she was like, this is so big. This is completely changing the ecosystem. This is the thing that we need to cover and follow, and everything will fall forward from that because it's just AI everything. And I think that's true. I figured, we should put in the Hall of Fame speaker of tech trend truths into our newsletter. She called it.
Exactly. And it's not, it's revenue too. I mean, it is, ChatGPT has just grown faster than basically any tech product in the world. And for whatever worry and, skepticism we have about multiples and valuations and profits, it is a rocket ship like none other. And every investor has reacted to that.
I guess my quick take would be that this is something that the haters have to reckon with on AI. Like, you can talk about how consumptive it is and, its effect on creativity and jobs and all these things, but to call it a scam, to call it useless, denies the fact that there are currently around 900 million weekly users on this one product. And if you want to tell all these people that they're wasting their time and there's no value to it because you don't like it, just be honest about that. But and listen, I have a million problems with AI. I don't know where this whole thing is going to go, but the anti-AI crowd has not really digested what it means for this to be the fastest growing product of all time.
All right. Our 7th top quote for 2025.
America's unique advantage that no country could possibly have is President Trump. That's Jensen Huang on Trump's embrace of the AI industry at the Winning the AI Race Summit in DC from July.
That was a selection in part because I was, I was giving them a handout because I was banished to the far end of the press realm when I went to cover this event. Of course I remember that, but I felt like Jensen's public statements, especially in DC, I know we're kind of policy heavy on the front half of this year, but it was, a pretty bold declaration that he was cozying up to President Trump. And obviously this has paid out dividends in the support of NVIDIA and allowing, not letting the export controls on the chips and sales to China go through because, they're best buds. So
we're not doing a word of the year, but if there was one, it might be sycophancy. And no quote embodied this, I think, better than Jensen's sycophancy for Trump. And he got what he wanted. Like you're saying, what is the main thing NVIDIA wanted? It's to be able to sell these fucking chips to China and make oodles of money. And Trump came through. So for shareholders, Jensen did what he needed to do. I mean,
in a moment of intense political cronyism, sucking up to the president has worked for all these guys. So why not do it? It's a good business strategy. If your whole goal is to help the shareholders, you're doing it.
Yeah, I think Jensen probably sets the mark for the most got the most out of being an ass sniffer to Trump. Like, he got the thing that he wanted, which was chip sales to China. That's a lot more clear to me than regulation, which probably could have happened without debasing yourself to the president. But Jensen wanted this thing, he got it. The stock benefits from it. Good on you, Jensen.
It's obviously terrible, and I don't know, the Democrats and the next administration is either we need some sort of law that prevents CEOs from doing this, or
from what kissing ass.
It's just that's
the name of the game.
Clearly, we can't stop the presidency from wielding this. What we need is somebody like Jensen to feel if a Democrat's back in charge, I could literally get arrested for this type of behavior. But I don't know. It's not good, and we need to figure out how to avoid it when this terrible clown show finally comes to an end.
Yeah, I mean, on the chips ban thing, though, it was so poorly implemented.
The cronyism needs to stop and needs to be illegal.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, and there needs to be social and legal consequences to it. Obviously, people should only be punished for actual laws they're breaking. I'm not saying we should just make up laws post hoc and punish people, but it's deeply troubling. Quote 8 for 2025.
I left this tour with the distinct feeling that AI raises some of the same fundamental questions that nukes did. How should they be used? By whom? Under what rules? Only this time we are creating a technology that can become smarter than humans who are designing it. That is Senator Alyssa Slotkin speaking to the Council of Foreign Relations in New York, September 5th. What's up with that one, Madeline? This was kind of an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah. So I thought that, a sitting U.S. senator comparing AI to nuclear power was a pretty, bold statement, in part because I feel like all of the AI CEOs who are boosting their product and proliferating it on all of us always make this comparison. So to have, a sitting U.S. senator give this speech towards the Council of Foreign Relations saying, oh, yes, it's just as important as nukes when you take it this seriously. Yes, it's a serious issue, but also it shows that the tech industry's narrative is, taken in by the U.S. Senate.
I do think ChatGPT flagged this one to me, and I flagged it to Madeline. So AI is influencing.
AI says it's important
here. What's interesting to me, in some ways, is that 2025 we've seen much less of the AI supremacy, AGI conversation. I think last year we would have been talking about that much more, but I think we've maybe overcorrected, and I think she's right that AI has these huge existential issues. And a key part of it is that it keeps getting smarter and is an intelligent being. I think we have another one that sort of speaks to that.
Yeah. I think the regulation of AI is important to talk about. I think discussing a technology that's getting smarter by leaps and bounds and is going to replace humanity because of its incredible intelligence is just not accurate to the way this technology has progressed over the last couple of years. I think it's gotten incrementally more efficient and maybe more utility. But to talk about this thing as this incredible growing force that we can't control plays into the marketing angle of AI. There's a difference between the complete, anti-AI stance, this is all useless, it provides nothing, and we have created the next Skynet. And I do worry sometimes the amount of discussion that gets committed to what do we do to prevent Skynet completely overrates the progress this technology has had in the past couple of years. And I'm down to have these discussions, but let's base it in the reality of what it can do and what it can't do. And what it can't do is actually think and do anything close to what we think a true art, an intelligence could do. So
I'm closer to the. I'm not. I mean, I think AI is net positive, but it's certain. I think it's more capable than you're describing. Newcomers quote number 9 for 2025.
Everything I do is recommended by ChatGPT, and then I check with my doctors for safety. I always ask them if they disagree, and if they disagree with ChatGPT, I ask another doctor. Jesus. That is Vinod Khosla on how much he uses AI for personal health decisions at the Deus Ex Medicina Summit, another Newcomer co-hosted event. This was in September.
Yeah, I felt like, Vinod was laying it on thick there for how much he's using ChatGPT for health benefit. And that was, of course, the theme of the conference that day. But, early investor in OpenAI, he's talking up OpenAI. It also has become a massive use case for OpenAI for people to check it for healthcare questions. And these startups like Open Evidence that are going gangbusters right now, raising tons and tons of new funding, seem to be basically ChatGPT for doctors. So while I see the benefit of that, it wades into this whole question of how much should we be using AI for healthcare, but that is clearly a use case that has evolved this year.
Yeah, I think doctors, we should have some on the show at some point. I'm interested to see how it's changed their job, not in how they diagnose patients, but how they deal with questions. I have a good doctor friend
we could have on.
Yeah, how they deal with questions from patients, because I'm sure the advent of WebMD, which is, the hackiest joke from the late 90s of I went on the internet and found I had cancer kind of thing. But I bet that did really change the medical profession in how you interact with patients. And this has probably only accelerated it.
Well, I think patients come at the doctor's appointment being I put my symptoms into ChatGPT and it said this. So I think I have this. And the doctor has to, respond in some way, but maybe the doctor's also using ChatGPT to check the symptoms as well. So it's an interesting ChatGPT to ChatGPT happening in the exam room.
It's first having a baby. ChatGPT is the first line of defense in, is this medical thing normal or not? Exactly. There was a brief second where we were worried that OpenAI was going to crack down on health stuff, but I think it was a sort of false rumor. And like you said, I think it's a use case they're really leaning into.
I have problems with the AI industry talking about ChatGPT diagnostics as a revolution, as something that's going to truly change the way people receive medical care. I think it's such a poor comparison, a poor stand-in for actual medical care and like a professional. And I know they do talk about this a lot, but like we have major issues with the way people receive medical treatment in this country and access to healthcare. And OpenAI and ChatGPT it's like a drop in the bucket of improvement toward what actually needs to happen to give people better quality of life. So
a lot of what we need is humanity. I mean, you go to a hospital, obviously my wife gave birth this year, and I don't know, nurse to nurse performance feels much more about bedside manner than medical knowledge. And in some ways, I hope ChatGPT sort of makes that even clearer. It's like, okay, if we have easy to access resources for the actual medical knowledge, then we're picking and elevating people based on, their bedside manner more and more than necessarily how much they can retain medical knowledge.
I'm interested in how AIs will change people's approach to bedside manner, and if it's going to cause people to become more argumentative with their nurses and doctors, because these AIs are trained to please you and to back up your questions, confirm your suspicions on things. And so if a nurse or a doctor is telling you one thing and you put it into ChatGPT and it's like, no, you're right, don't trust the medical professional industry. You should be willing to question professionals when it comes to your health, but it sounds like it's just going to create more antagonism between people and their doctors.
But doctors, I think, are embracing it more than you seem to think. Like, I don't know. We'll see. We should do an episode on that. Quote number 10.
If you were 13 years old, you should spend all your time vibe coding. That's how you should live your life. That's Alexander Huang on TBPN in September.
Obviously, he sold his company Scale this year for $1 billion.
Obviously he was around a $13 billion exit right there, so good for him. But well, I picked this quote in part because vibe coding obviously took off quite a bit this year. We've all tinkered with Lovable and Cursor and the various vibe coding tools on this show and the newsletter. And also, I think it's very funny to hear Alexander Wang's dictating how 13-year-olds will live their life in the future from now on. I think there's a good Silicon Valley culture of like, we got to tell the youth how they're going to change their entire education always. And now it's vibe coding. So
is he a college dropout? He has that college dropout profile.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know if he's a college dropout. I think he might have graduated from college when he was 19. I think he's some sort of...
He was a...
prodigy.
Yeah, I think he's a prodigy. He was a math prodigy. So yeah, I think what he did at 13 is not going to be what everyone does.
Not your typical 13-year-old.
He did drop out of MIT. Looks like.
Oh yes, he has it on LinkedIn. Grade 5.0, dropout.
Yeah.
the dream Silicon Valley resume dream. Right there. Yeah.
I think vibe coding is TBD as to its actual effectiveness. There have been a lot of interesting trend pieces about the vibe coding scene in San Francisco specifically, and the whole startup culture built around people that have no real technical skills but have created their app entirely through vibe coding. I guess I defer to you guys a little, but like, I don't know what's the last significant startup that has raised money that was built atop a vibe coded app. I don't think there have been any. They all seem kind of lame. And I had fun vibe coding something that I used this year.
What?
Like I built this, people make fun of me about this. When I go to the gym, I always forget what locker I put my shit into. And so I built an app through ChatGPT that it kind of like used object like OCR to recognize the number. So I would like hold it up to the number of the locker and it would store the number. And so then at the end of my workout, I would look at it and it would have the number in there. The obvious answer to this is, why can't you just take a picture with your phone and look at that?
I was going to say, I love the Notes app. That's a great app that also exists. You can write it down.
But then you have to write it down. I wanted an app that I could just hold it up to the number. And look, I wanted to vibe code something, and that was the idea.
And you want a purpose. It's nice to have a purpose-built app,
Yeah. I also learned that when you vibe code something, it only lasts on your phone for 30 days through Test Pilot, the iPhone kind of beta testing service. So it's now gone. Locker Buddy is not a usable app.
Aww. R.I.P.
But yeah, I think I can somehow re-upload it there. But I am actually pretty skeptical of vibe coding as something with real utility. The fact that you can do it doesn't mean it has that much value. And so beyond just like little home projects like what I did, I don't really know if this is quite the revolution that a lot of people are wanting it to be.
Tom, do you still think we should all learn how to code?
All of us?
Well, they say you don't ever have to learn how to code anymore. And the refrain was always learn to code. But now we have vibe coding.
The fact that we can code now in plain language, in plain English, and that, obviously there are limitations, but it's getting better and better. The fact that people who are themselves genius coders and math geniuses think you should just learn to code in English. Like, that's hugely significant. I like raising my daughter. It's like, okay, I'm spending a lot of time right now trying to babble with her, eventually teach her English. You skip the step where you have to go learn some code-based language to interact with computers. You can just use the English you learned. And all of a sudden, the humanities majors among us are going to be empowered to build whatever we want on the internet. And that's validated by the math geeks this year. Like, that's huge. I think it's landmark. I think we're way underestimating how much it's going to be a boon to the word cells among us.
I believe that,
you did it, Tom. You built the app.
But what value did it truly add? It was a fun little project. It's like, I think everyone should learn how to build model airplanes.
You didn't have enough ambition. It was sort of a silly little project, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if vibe coding allows you to have much more ambition than what I did.
Right. But we're in year 1 or 2 of vibe coding. We're in the beginning. This is where tech people dominate the rest of us. You see it's just okay. It's because there's a rate of growth, because they're just starting. This is just happening. This is all so fresh.
But what are you going to really build? What would you do? You have the ability to vibe code right now. What could you build in your life that would change it in a way that you're like, oh my God, everyone fucking needs to vibe code right now?
There are whole things around the Newcomer business that I would like to build. We are literally talking to some of the vibe coding companies about trying to build stuff.
But why wouldn't you just hire a developer to build something for you?
Well, somebody like us, we're not going to hire necessarily a great developer. It's not our expertise. I don't know how to manage a developer.
Expensive. Yeah.
And some of the things we want, it's like the beauty of vibe coding, right? And this is why we had, Dylan Field at Figma on stage at one of our Cerebral Valley events in London. It's just you get to think when you write a piece, you think about the ideas and it makes your writing better, right? When you're coding the thing, you're building the thing and you start to understand what goes into it, what trade-offs have to be made. And so I think giving the person with the idea for the product the ability to do the actual thing without having to know how to code just allows you to sort of think through it. And it just empowers
so that you
creators.
Can ultimately tell a developer what you want when you want an actual functional high quality
it's
app.
best for prototyping right now. I agree. But I think it's the trend line.
This is the worst it's ever going to be. I do think that's true, to your point, Eric.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also
I'll
think
gang up on you on this one, Tom. I think it's pretty big.
Let's circle back to this one at the end of 26. We'll see where vibe coding is going.
Sounds good.
I'm betting the under.
All right. Quote 11.
But make no mistake, what we are dealing with is a real and mysterious creature, not a simple and predictable machine. This is Jack Clark on the significance of artificial intelligence development during a speech at the Curve conference in Berkeley, and that was in October. Your former colleague at Bloomberg,
right.
Jack Clark.
Anthropic co-founder and my former colleague. Jack and I have hung out, and he is.
We used to go biking together. Remember, we biked on Skyline.
I went to a punk rock backyard show with him. Yeah.
Wait, no way! I didn't know this.
Yeah. He was just a regular guy.
He covered Google.
Guy.
It's the most normie beat.
Dude, it was a little too wonky.
So
it was like, Jack, this is Bloomberg. Worry about money, less about tech. And he really loved technology. And then he goes off to OpenAI. And he turns out you make a lot more money in Silicon Valley thinking about tech than thinking about money. So
I remember when he quit Bloomberg to go to OpenAI, and we were all like, well, that's stupid. Why would you leave a great job like Bloomberg, which you ended up doing? What's
I didn't think it was stupid. I just, it was in the reporter Kool-Aid cult that you spend your life, it's very hard to get into reporting. It's hard to give it up. But kudos to Jack. And Jack, he writes a very successful newsletter, Import AI. So somehow he's able to co-found Anthropic and do the newsletter hustle and be a top thinker on AI policy. Anyway, Madeline, we've talked about Jack, but what stood out to you about the quote itself?
Right. Well, I felt like, one, he was fully anthropomorphizing the AI, which in this episode alone, we've debated if that's legit or not. And it also felt really representative of the Anthropic take. You know what I mean? Like, all of the foundation model companies have sort of their stance on how much we should regulate this or not regulate this or limit the contents of the speech or be concerned if it's spewing dangerous ideas or what the power of the great machine is. And yes, AGI fears have fallen somewhat out of the conversation, but Anthropic is still doing it, and they're still very concerned about safety. So that was sort of the signpost of Anthropic posture, I felt like, as a quote that we should put in the list.
I feel like it fits in with the Slotkin point of view, which is, yes, 2025 is the year where doomerism's out of favor and Tom's view is ascendant, but there are still holdouts who think this is a thing heading to general intelligence. It is a real and mysterious creature. I sort of agree with Jack.
What I actually take away from this is less like I've already started my piece about, the anthropomorphization of technology. I am really interested in like the separation of Anthropic from the rest of the AI field right now, just as a company.
Totally.
Like, kudos to Dario he's just a very earnest guy. Like, he is stuck by his guns as, I'm very worried about AI. I want to talk about regulation. He has been caught in the crosshairs with David Sachs and the Trump administration. He truly does not like Trump, which, causes him potential business concerns. And I think, going out of this year, Anthropic looks like the better bet as a company right now, just in terms of its financial stability. Its aim is very true. It's not trying to do a million different things. And, a lot can change. I saw Elon, shitting on Anthropic at some point during the year, saying like Anthropic winning was never in the cards or something like that. And they might go public next year, which is by no means success. That's not like an end point. It's not like you've reached the end of your journey and you've won, but like they're building something that feels a lot more reasonable right now.
Well, it's also funny Elon saying that when he's running, XAI as well, as if he's just, commenting on this like he doesn't have a direct competitor stake.
Yeah.
We live in the world where you pick your philosopher king, and I think everybody on this podcast would prefer Dario to Elon Musk and Sam Altman. So
plus, we all agree that Claude is the better writing partner, I have to say.
Yes, although it's starting to get a little sycophantic to me.
The man behind the philosopher king. All right, quote number 12.
Overall, the models are not there. I feel like the industry is making too big of a jump and is trying to pretend like this is amazing, and it's not. It's slop. That is Andrej Karpathy, my man, during his interview on the Dwarkesh podcast, and that is from October.
Yeah, so I think you can tell it worked out quite well that these were chronologically next to each other, because I did pair these together if I was able to just throw them all on the page. We come from Anthropic, oh my gosh, the consequences of our actions, how will we live in the future, to where the models are right now is bad, in that kind of broke the internet in tech world, at least when that episode came out, of having, Andrej Karpathy basically say the quiet part out loud that these models are great. There's things that they can't do as well as we'd like, and are they God kings at this point? No.
Yeah, I mean, this was the interview that shook Silicon Valley. Everybody takes what Karpathy has to say extremely seriously. He is both technically capable and speaks in plain English. And I don't think anybody is disagreeing with him directly. He's a little bit more cautious, maybe Dario, but he was more sanguine about the rate of progress than I think Silicon Valley had been up until that point.
Yeah, this is, I think, the first time we've mentioned it so far, but the word slop, which was the actual word of the year, although I like your sycophancy as another choice for word of the year, Eric. I think slop is a fascinating concept. It gets misapplied a lot. People are just calling everything they don't like as slop, which is unfortunate because I think it's a very specific thing, which is content that is unmoored to general taste or interest, and it just sort of gets produced and, thrown out into the world. But AI will have to, at some point, the industry will have to reckon with the prevalence of slop that has come out of these tools. And
I think Meta's launch of Vibes personifies the slop. Is that a fair statement? Like when Vibes came out, when they were rushing to meet Sora, that to me was the slop of 2025. Just a fully scrollable AI generated content app with no taste discernment, no rhyme or reason, just scrolling through the endless feed. That to me, more so than just, slop being something I don't like, to your point, Tom, that was like the definition of what really we're talking about here.
Yeah, and is it a replacement for entertainment? Is it going to get infused into quote unquote mainstream entertainment, or will it exist as this parallel industry? The idea of someone just tuning out and like scrolling through slop is very nihilistic to me. And I'm not even saying that, like, I believe AI can have many positive effects on entertainment, but slop feed, even Sora, the idea that someone could like go through Sora as a social media tool, not just a creation tool, but like just checking out other people's like that's weird. That's really weird to me. I don't love that idea.
Sycophancy and slop 2025. All right. Quote 13 for our top quotes in 2025.
Having listened closely to my fellow San Franciscans and our local officials, and after the largest and safest Dreamforce in our history, I do not believe the National Guard is needed to address safety in San Francisco. My earlier comment came from an abundance of caution around the event, and I sincerely apologize for the concern it caused. That was Marc Benioff on X after asking Trump to send the National Guard into San Francisco ahead of Dreamforce.
This is someone, Tom has written a profile of Marc Benioff in which Benioff sicked the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and Yo-Yo Ma on Tom to keep the profile upbeat. So I'm sure Tom will have lots to say about Benioff, but Madeline, you want to take a first crack at why we picked this one?
Yes. So many will ask, why did I not pick the send the National Guard quote in and of itself? Fair point. However, I felt like the 5-day, like maybe not 5 days, but super quick apology to the mass backlash was such a like tail between your legs moment. And it really personified to me also, as we've talked about the tech's move to the right, how quickly they'll easily swing back when they realize that it's not working for them.
Yeah, no, it was astounding that he did this, that he called for Marc Benioff, the good, loyal Democrat, the one who was to the left of a lot of Silicon Valley Democrats, calling for like more taxes in San Francisco. And then, then he calls for the National Guard. It just seemed totally,
he called once for a boycott of Indiana because of its anti-abortion law. He threatened to pull their employees in Indiana out of the state because he was so offended by a
right. He was the moralizer in chief. I mean, he embraced sort of wokeism, right? I mean, he was definitely pro like sort of the push to DEI. I mean, the business case is just Salesforce is suffering and could use a boost. And, maybe he's like, I need some of this Trump favoritism I hear so much about. But I don't know. Tom, get in Marc Benioff's head for a second here.
I mean, I think I always used to use Benioff and Ron Conway as examples of when tech people get involved in politics and actually know what they're doing, because they tend to win. Benioff supported Prop C and it won. Whether or not that's been good enough for the city is a different conversation, but he backs winners. He knows when to get involved in stuff.
That was the revenue
claims,
tax, right?
Yeah, on businesses, which was, to help fund homelessness initiatives. And he's a big philanthropist and all this stuff. Ron Conway essentially picks the mayor in San Francisco every time there's an election. And you saw a split between them after this comment, after his like National Guard comments, to a point where Ron Conway, I don't think is really buddies with him anymore, and stepped down from the board of one of his foundations. And
kudos to Ron Conway, the only tech guy with a backbone right now.
Yeah, in San Francisco, and Dario. I think
we can do our newcomers good list. We've got Ron.
Nice
Conway,
list, a naughty list. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I think Benioff has got a lot of problems to deal with. As a business right now. I mean, when I did this story,
he's just out of touch? Like he didn't know? Like what's wrong with him? Like I guess he just
seems to not be able to read the moment, or maybe he's reading it better than anyone else, and things will come back around. But I thought you saw between the National Guard comment and then he went to a Trump state dinner, which is fine, a White House dinner. Like, it's important for these guys to go there. But he was like taking selfies with Pam Bondi on it and being like, hey, the fun kids just showed up. And it's like, no one likes Pam Bondi, dude. like I don't even think Trump likes her right now.
Right.
Like, the political instincts are way off right now. The only thing that's more off than Benioff's political instincts is Salesforce's stock price.
Right.
But
Benioff was he on the podcast this year, by the way, our podcast?
Yeah.
Well, things well, and at the end of that podcast, if you stuck around to the end, I still saw him like Ron Conway, where I was like, what's going on? Like, you won't stand up to these guys. And there were early hints, because I was like, you don't have more of a backbone than this. You've been such a loud like Democrat. And he was pretty cowardly. Like, I was definitely disappointed on that episode. But yeah, he's in a weird place.
I think people lose touch at a certain point, even if you have a great feel for the instincts and the politics. At some point, you just the scene moves on without you, and you start making these kinds of mistakes. And Benioff had so many of them this year.
I think the general billionaire world and successful business world did not clock the shift rapidly against Trump that happened as quickly as it has. And I think that they thought that they maybe had a couple more years of this before the pendulum swung, but the economic fallout and people don't like the immigration crackdowns, and basically public opinion has shifted remarkably quickly away from Trump in the last few months. So I think a lot of people were caught a little off guard.
We're going to get real fascism, and we haven't gotten the memo yet. And these guys know what's...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He might have better instincts than all of us.
All right. Quote number 14 for 2025.
A rejection of any kind. I should like shift in my chair a lot as I'm reading this quote.
Wait, yeah,
do you have any Adderall over there? Or?
Yeah. Is that what it is? Okay.
You could do a push-up.
Adderall, I think I won't get in trouble for joking about. I don't know what it is.
My son is neuroatypical, so I feel okay calling him out for this. A rejection of any kind of shared and defined sense of common culture in this nation and others has significant costs. We should, indeed must, return to a shared national experience, an embrace of common identity that by definition puts forward certain ideas, values, cultures, and ways of living at the exclusion of others. That's Alex Karp in his Palantir's Q3 letter to shareholders from November.
Not DealBook, where we're referencing the crazy physical antics of Alex Karp at DealBook, though I don't know if the actual prose was as good.
It was hard to quote the prose from the DealBook moment. If we could include a video clip in this post, I would have included a video. However, I wanted to get the sentiment across of the twitchy conversation. Yeah, I think Alex Karp has been, a really prominent CEO this year in tech. Obviously, Palantir's stock has gone up quite a bit and down and fluctuated, but, it's been a stock to watch. And his, embrace of the West and the Trump administration and kind of defense tech as a larger theme. The West
in the as a synonym for white people, or I don't know. The West is
What does the West mean? How they say it's like Judeo-Christian values. It's a catch-all for all that. And how best we should do business and live our lives. And his sort of embrace of that kind of went mainstream. And it was enough that he put it, in his quarterly letter to shareholders that this is the philosophy we are going to follow at Palantir. And I think it's a philosophy that guides a lot of these defense tech companies that have propped up, that are all kind of children of Palantir in a way, or children of Anduril, which is also came out of Palantir, with a lot of ex-guys there. So I felt like this was a way to capture the defense tech moment. And maybe we can, embed a little twitchiness somehow when
this I take great umbrage. Embrace of common identity that by definition puts forward certain ideas, values. Like the great thing about being a country organized around the Declaration of Independence and Enlightenment ideas is that we're organized around ideas directly. Like I feel like they're trying to sort of there's a lot of identitarianism, obviously on the rise this year. And this seems to try and have it.
It's trying to have it both ways. It is. It's trying to say, yes, we're rah-rah America, but if you're being rah-rah America, you have to embrace, American values of being a country founded on ideas, not identity and, nationality and race per that narrative. And he's also trying to do it pretty heavily. But yeah, our identity is what matters, and that's the right one. So it felt like, really captured the spirit of those guys.
Yeah, Karp's a weird one, though, too. He doesn't really fit the molds of a lot of these people. I mean, the dude voted for Kamala. And so he's also like...
Well, they always bring him out as the token Democrat defense tech guy at all these events.
Yeah, he's kind of a lib. He's just sort of all over the place. I never know what to draw from him. I like the idea of him as an avatar of kind of the defense tech moment, too, because Palmer Luckey is the same sort of thing. He's kind of hard to categorize. But
that's true.
These guys matter.
But Palmer, is much more socially of the MAGA world than...
Yes.
Well, Karp is close to Peter Thiel. So, they're all...
it's complicated. They're all complicated.
Yeah. It's complicated.
I don't have a great read on Alex Karp.
I used to go to Sun Valley, the big media tech.
Not as a man with a badge, as a reporter clinging to the edges.
I would sit at
get a morsel. Please, CEO, can you give me a scoop about what coffee order you're making right now?
Yeah. It's like
that's not even
there
an
are
overstatement,
people,
right? It's like Tim Cook had a coffee with Mark Zuckerberg. Scoop,
No, it was Tim Apple was at the coffee shop outside Sun Valley, and he tried to pay with Apple Pay, and they didn't accept it. Oh. And we wrote a little item about that for the information. and got picked up by Business Insider.
Oh, that's
a
fun.
great wheel of content.
Glad you got aggregated there.
Yeah, it's really one of the true humiliating experiences of my life is going to Sun Valley. But I would see Alex Karp walking around, in between the lodge and the duck pond, and the amount of nervous energy emanating from this guy could power a fucking data center. That guy there's a lot going on there. Let's move on.
All right. Quote number 15.
I like this one. This is where we're looking for an ecosystem of banks, private equity, maybe even governmental, the way governments can come to bear, meaning just first of all, the backstop, the guarantee that allows the financing to happen. So that was Sarah Fryer, of course, OpenAI CFO, on whether OpenAI would need a federal backstop against its spending. And that was at the Wall Street Journal's Tech Live event in Napa. And that was in November.
Great pick. Backstop. That's
the backstop.
Another word of the year, honestly. Backstop really rang around Twitter.
That one speaks for itself. OpenAI CFO calling for a federal backstop in words that she quickly walked back after this live event. But that's the power of live journalism and why we have a thriving events business, because you say stuff on stage that maybe reveals what you're really thinking about.
There was a lot of hand-wringing from OpenAI after that, where they were like, that's not what we meant. My words were taken out of context. I was just agreeing broadly with the premise of this. And they had to, announce that they never wanted to do it. And then it turned out there was some letter that OpenAI had actually sent to the administration in which they had floated this. I don't have the reporting to back this up. This is purely based on intuition. They fucking want a federal backstop. There is no question in my mind that OpenAI wants to be sure that when they start to take out enormous loans to pay for their compute needs, that they want to be sure that they will not default as a company. And they got called out for it. They kind of got a little too close to the sun. They saw everyone on all, from left to right.
They had a policy memo document that floated this idea. This was not an errant thing, she said. And it really feels like if they'd done it more artfully, they might have gotten away with it. It's not totally outside of reason that they could convince the Trump administration to say, hey, it's very strategically important that we have AI investment. We're going to guarantee loans to OpenAI. There's no reason they'd fail. But thankfully, I think, as we said at the top of this episode, there are enough AI skeptics that that I think would be very politically unpalatable. And anyone who believes in free enterprise and risk and thinks bailouts distort the entire economy and that capitalism means capitalism should be against a fucking federal backstop. That's the risk investors are meant to take. They're betting on whether AI is safe, a safe financial investment or not. And that's the provenance of the free market and investors and not the government. So yeah, I'm happy to root against
the premise of what venture
stop.
Capital is. It's inherently a risky investment. That is, where these companies are birthed from. That's kind of the whole deal, that you're taking a risk and it may not work out, but you may get super rich otherwise. So it's funny to see, OpenAI, the most valuable venture-backed private company in the world, is it compared to SpaceX? Where are they? Are they neck and neck right now? But anyway, it's, we'll do our business in private. It's not even public, but we need a federal backstop.
But it's not even venture capital. It's debt. like debt comes with risk with it. Like that's the reason that people that take debt make money from taking on debt, like buying out debt, because it's a risky endeavor. And so it was funny to see David Sachs, in response to this whole thing being like, the government will absolutely not be bailing out any AI companies. There are lots of model providers out there, which is an idiotic thing to say, because the whole point of being too big to fail means that like there are wider implications to a failure. There's a fallout for it. We said this on the show in stories on Newcomer. OpenAI's strategy of taking on these massive, these massive deals is a too big to fail strategy. That they are, Sam Altman has been intertwining himself into the broader economic environment such that like if they were to default as a company, there would be a pretty large, maybe not catastrophic, but a large effect on tech stocks more broadly. And I don't know. I think he's engineered it. This is where we're at right now. OpenAI is wound into the valuation of multiple publicly traded companies. And if they were to collapse one day, it would have some sort of larger economic fallout.
But, okay. Brief thing here. It's like equity is much safer than debt, right? It's like most of the money OpenAI has taken on so far is in the form of equity. So if OpenAI's value collapses, Microsoft or somebody could buy it at a low price. It doesn't mean it collapses to zero. The real problem is if it has all this debt that, outstrips its equity value, then, everybody could want to avoid buying it because they would take on all this debt. And then you have a huge problem. So right now, I don't think we have the level of debt that we have that sort of house of cards.
But the debt exists at the peripheries. Like Oracle, which is a major partner of theirs, has taken on a lot of debt to pay for data centers. CoreWeave has taken on debt.
CoreWeave is a ton of debt. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those companies float on a sea of
aren't
debt.
going to get saved. That's why it's good that it's sort of externalized from OpenAI. Right. So I don't know that I see the catastrophe you're painting, but Sam Altman has an insatiable appetite for more and knows that, he's in the business of scale, right? These foundation models seem still to get smarter the more they spend on training runs. And so he'll take as much money as he can get. And if the government giving him a backstop to get cheap debt was going to be one path, he'd try it. But he's also happy to try things that don't succeed and move on to the next one. And so hopefully the backstop idea didn't take.
To Sarah Fryer, it never hurts to ask. You never know until you ask.
Right. Exactly. All right. Quote 16 for 2025.
I think democracy's fucked if we do this. That is from Law Adventure's Andy Konwinski, interviewed by me at the Cerebral Valley AI Summit. And this was about whether what would happen if the U.S. cedes open source on AI research advancement to China.
Yeah. So, I picked that one in part because I feel like the open source debate hadn't been touched on as much in this list, but the increasing competition with China around the AI race was a very major theme of 2025. And they are obviously, maybe they're cheating, but there's some evidence that suggests that they're taking some stuff from the US, but they are, kicking our ass in open source in a lot of ways. So I think it's a fair point.
Andy, founder of Perplexity and Databricks, very importantly. So a serious guy and has the beard to reflect his seriousness. I don't know, Tom. Yeah, you asked him the question. What was your take?
The Rick Rubin of tech. Very difficult for microphones,
only an aesthetic.
By the way. Yeah. I think open source is a fascinating topic that was so big at the beginning of the year because of DeepSeek and this idea of like whether an open source model could actively compete with, what the proprietary closed source models can do. We've kind of forgotten about it. China really does seem to be way out ahead right now. Not even does seem to be, they are way out ahead. And there's a lot of open source models that are being used by American companies that are all made in China. And, that is concerning to a lot of people, that dynamic. And you're seeing a few companies coming up like Reflection, and maybe Meta is actually abandoning open source. So that's kind of interesting. But I would place my bet that 5 to 10 years from now, the most important models probably will be open source. It just is the trend of that kind of technology. So I guess if you're someone like Andy, you better hope it's coming from an American
What
company.
I don't understand is if it's open, truly, then who cares? If it's Chinese, we can still have U.S. companies that host it.
100%.
Like, what does it matter? is he more interested? He's more worried about like the capability and just that if you're producing the open source research, you understand it better and therefore you're more capable.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to get into like the geopolitics of it all, but I think he was equating open source with democracy. That like and that's a kind of core belief of certain technologists, is that technology should be something that is democratically available, and open source is the only real way of getting there. And if we believe in a future entirely run by AI, the public should have the right to, be able to adjust it as they want and not pay a price every single time you want to access this technology. It's an interesting idea.
Quote 17, home stretch, second to last.
We should have like corporate music playing in the background, like those like training videos,
Like da 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 da.
Yeah. We are delighted by Google's success. They've made great advances in AI, and we continue to supply to Google. NVIDIA is a generation ahead of the industry. It's the only platform that runs every AI model and does it everywhere computing is done. NVIDIA offers greater performance, versatility, and fungibility than ASICs, which are designed for specific AI frameworks or functions. This is a tweet from NVIDIA's newsroom after the release of Google's Gemini 3, and it got a bunch of public praise. And also, I think it's specifically in response to a story from The Information that Meta was talking to Google about purchasing a huge number of TPUs from them.
Right. Yes. So this I would call the quote that personified the oh shit moment for a lot of people about Gemini 3's launch and how successful the model was while being trained on Google's in-house TPU chips, to where everyone kind of realized Google has the full package under one roof, and we should not count out Google at this moment in the AI race. They have top scientists. They have a really strong, high-performing model. They have a great image model. They have a search engine business that prints money for them to power all of this, so they aren't necessarily as reliant on debt as maybe some other people will be. And they have the chips themselves. So that's kind of, we can debate if they're a monopoly or not, since they kind of are told they are, but it doesn't matter. But they have an advantage here.
Google stock is up 65% year to date. It certainly has been not a surprise to us, as you've heard on this podcast before. I guess we should make more money betting on stocks we believe in, because Tom came into the job betting on Google, or narratively betting on Google, and
unfortunately,
the stock is doing well.
Betting on Google.
But NVIDIA. I think, as Tom is going to get into, this is extreme defensive-ness in PR from NVIDIA. Like, doth protest too much situation.
No, we're doing great. Our business is doing awesome.
Exactly.
And don't forget that you'll need a lot more than just one type of chip.
Exactly. We're specialized.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the Lulu world of telling other people how to manage their comm strategy, but sometimes not saying anything is the best response to an event, and not even a particularly damaging one. Like, NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company. You can handle like 1 or 2 bad days of trading because of a story saying that like one company is going to be buying your competitor's chips. Like, you guys are still basically owning the whole AI chips game. So maybe don't talk too much about that. But and look, in terms of Google, I have not actually messed around with the Gemini text model that much. I haven't seen it back and forth with that sort of thing. But Nano Banana might be my favorite app of the year. I think it's an incredibly fun image generation tool. It's so quick. It really understands what you're asking for. I think really is that was like the sort of lead piece of the Google comeback, quote unquote comeback story, was the effectiveness of Nano Banana. And they still got it. He still got it.
NVIDIA is up 36.5% this year. So not bad, but it's not as sexy as it had been. It's up over 5 years. It is up 1,350%. So we got so much growth in 2024 that 2025 for NVIDIA was just not as exciting. But Google has been insane, and we're getting a little defensiveness from NVIDIA and from their public relations department. All right. Our final quote for 2025, quote number 18.
I cannot imagine having gone through figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT.
Do it again. He's not that bad.
I cannot imagine having gone through figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT. That's Sam. Is that a better Sam? I don't know. I mean, it's usually a little more muted and kind of confused.
He's totally reinvented his voice. That's Sam Altman. We refer to him as Sam. We have literally gotten questions from YouTube commenters being like, who is Sam? I think you can default
find
on
another
this podcast.
Then I'm
Sam
sorry.
is Sam Altman, but yes, there are
Sam
other
Ganges from Lord of the Rings. What Sam do you think we're talking about?
Sam Altman on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, December 8th, 2025. Madeline, why was this our last quote of 2025?
It was, Sam Altman go on TV and act human challenge. Oh, failed. It was, every time we have these guys, come and defend. I mean, so much of this list was really the AI industry coming out and saying why they're important, why they should matter. Political leaders saying why they should matter, defending them as well. This was, to the normies, The Tonight Show. We're going on Middle America Network talk show. Let's chat. Why is AI so great? Oh, this thing, to your point, Eric, that we humans have been doing for millions of years, can't do it without AI. Real relatable content there.
Which is funny because on this podcast, I often invoke using ChatGPT for my newborn. So I'm sympathetic that it is a useful thing, but just saying it's the hyperbole of the fundraiser, Sam Altman, right? He gives these maximalist things to get people to give them his money, and then sort of suggesting that you needed ChatGPT to do the most essential of human tasks, raising your child, just shows a level of disconnection from real humans that doesn't make you a great spokesman on The Tonight Show.
Yeah, I think 26 is going to be a very critical one for the AI industry, as we are well past the point of fun, novel, growing technology. OpenAI is probably going to reach, ChatGPT is going to reach 1 billion weekly users some point early next year. And their big battle is going to be getting people, the normies, comfortable with this technology and wanting to use it every day and finding utility in it so that they're willing to pay money and, make this company at some point financially stable. And if you can't do better than Sam did on probably the softest possible interview in media, then it's not going to be an easy task.
Jimmy Fallon really known for his hard-hitting interrogative questions there.
Yeah, the guy who musked
so
Donald Trump's hair. Maybe you should have done that for Sam.
Yeah, he should have. Yeah, that would have been good.
Should have ruffled his hair a bit. I don't know.
All right, those are the 18 quotes that defined 2025. Thanks for listening. See you in 2026.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Listen in for new episodes every week wherever you get your podcasts.